Anywhere from 10% to 25% impervious surface. There is starting to become signs of impact from the runoff, erosion, so on and so forth. Greater than 25%, which that's what Providence is, right? How much was Providence? 37%, excellent. So that's where we become severely impacted, and the stream quality and the river quality is annihilated. And that actually started way back when we settled. We have to remember that one of the greatest water qualities, or greatest qualities of water chemical attributes, is that water is a universal solvent. So as it's going through the impervious surface, it's dissolving the oil and stuff as it's going through. And so when water goes through, it is important that it's taking everything with it. It's not just going to glide over the oil. No, it's going to take it right with it. So that's why the impervious surfaces are such a detriment to the environment. It's not so much that they can't infiltrate. It's taking the stuff and the chemicals and along with it right into the water. Again, watershedcounts.org, great website to start learning a little bit more about impervious surfaces and what it does. The second thing that we kind of, Denise and I sat down and talked about was the pollution. And the thing that we want you to understand about pollution is that there are two different types. There's point source pollution and non-point source pollution. Plain and simple, point source pollution, it's going from there. I can see it. You can point to the leaky container. You can point to the leaky car. You can point to the sewage pipe dispersing all the effluent from wherever it's coming from. So those are point source pollution. Then we have non-point source pollution. It's pollution that's coming from a larger area where you can. That would be across roadways, across with the oil, garbage going through. There's no real point. Great example is fertilizers on lawns and agriculture areas. There's no real point. It's a mass area that's going and taking up all this pollution and putting it into the rivers. So types of pollution, pretty common sense. You guys know about this, right? You know that there's air pollution, there's water pollution, there's just environmental pollution, and it comes from effluents from businesses, old mills. How many of you guys live in old mill towns? Pretty much everywhere in Rhode Island was an old mill town. Whether it be in Providence, Wakefield, here, Exeter, Hope Valley, Carolina, that was a huge old mill town. So we have a lot of old mill towns because that's what we did. We saw a river, we threw a mill on it, up, there's water power, boom. And by putting up those mills, that brought people in for work, and then that started the economy going. So sewage overflow. Motor oil, pet waste. How many people walk their dogs and don't pick up? How many don't pick up their poo as they're going through? Be honest, I don't pick it up all the time. But it's only I do when I walk. Make sure that I do pick up my doggy waste, so I want my neighbors to be happy with me. That's why I go to the other neighbor's house that I don't like. But you should pick up your pet waste, because I know I have a ground well, and pretty much if I leave all those poop spots, eventually it's going into my well. So I have to make sure that that stuff is not going to go into it. But in the city, where's it going to go? If you don't pick it up, it's going to end up on the street, end up directly into the waterways. Garbage, same thing. And I put this out because this was actually on, I think it was a French website, an advertisement for clean cars or something like that. And pretty much, he's pretty much directly washing his car in a river or in the ocean. So talk about being completely there in the ocean. So it's not something that we condone, but that's something that you have to think about. They wash the cars in the city. Where does it go? Right into those storm drains, right into the rivers. And effects of pollution. It reduces the amount of potable water, as you had said, available. Because guess what? We have a very finite supply of water in our ecosystem as a whole. We don't have a lot of fresh water that we can actually drink. I think it's less than 3% or 0.03%. It's less than 1%. So yeah, so we don't have it's like less than 1%. It's
When you're looking at
the whole in the world.
if I had 100 M&Ms, which this is one of the things I usually do, but I didn't bring it. If I had 100 M&Ms, what percentage of that is water that we could pop? What percentage of that is salt water out of 100 M&Ms?
97.
97%. Okay, good. You guys are closer. Of that 3%, not all of it is available to us. So what percent of that is not available to us?
The Arctic ice caps.
Arctic ice caps, yeah. Arctic, Antarctic ice caps. So what percent of that how much of that 3% is not available to us in the ice caps?
2%.
Over 2%. Okay? So that leaves less than 1% that's fresh water that we could possibly use. Except with global warming, we're melting more of the ice caps. So.
It gives us more water. There we go. Of course, it's going to be diluted with the salt, but whatever. All right, so basically, the reduction of potable water reduces the diversity of organisms in the river systems. Basically, you have pollution, it's going to kill the macroinvertebrates that the fish eat. It's going to kill the fish. It creates eutrophication of freshwater systems, an influx of nutrients going in freshwater systems. That is, can anybody tell me what the limiting factor in freshwater systems is if you have too much of it in fertilizers? Other one? Phosphorus, perfect. So, and then salt water, the nitrogen is the limiting factor in saltwater systems. And basically, we reduce the ability to recreate. Who wants to go swim in the Blackstone right now? How come? Well, it's solid right now. But under normal circumstances, are you going to go jump in the Blackstone? Probably not, because there's old garbage in there. There's mill runoff and stuff like that. At one time, it used to be so bad that the joke used to be they would know what color they were dyeing their textiles by the color of the water coming out of the mills. Now, it is not like that anymore. They have been working so hard to get that up and going, but it's still, the old residual pollution is still there. They're still pulling out old stuff in there. So
what is eutrophication?
So when there are too many nutrients that are removing limiting factors in the water system, it creates a rise in algae or bacteria that ultimately die off, and then the decomposition takes away all the oxygen, thus causing fish kills and some overall that.
Okay, so there's too much of nutrients basically in the system. What is anoxic conditions? What is anoxia?
yep.
Does anybody know how much oxygen is in the air we breathe? 20%. 20%. So about 200,000 parts per million. You know on a good day how much oxygen is in the water? On a good day. 12. So you reduce that by a third, and you're starting to really severely impact the organisms.
Excellent. All right, so the third point that we had that urban influences is habitat destruction. And I put this on here because I don't think that people realize, and Denise is going to go over this a little bit more with the wetlands, how important our salt marshes and our marsh areas are to the protection of our areas, to protect from flood. It's a floodplain, and on top of it, it also is a nutrient recycler. It helps absorb some of those things, those pollutants that do come in, those nutrients, so on and so forth. So, yep. Exactly, exactly. So those salt marshes are really, really important. So we have then a healthier salt marsh up here. It's still somewhat impaired, but up on the left-hand side. But here you can see that this is Providence. That's not very much salt marsh area or marsh area to prevent flooding, is it? There's pretty much nothing there. So here we have, there's no buffer, there's no area for that water to go when that river rises. There's nothing, there's no floodplain, nothing. So cities often get very flooded very quick. So with that, that's beautiful, that walkway there, but if it weren't there, it would give a little bit extra area. So even just making that really nice and pretty area is still a detriment to cities. And pretty much habitat destruction, you have the erosion of riverbanks, reduced stream diversity. The big thing for healthy systems, whether it be in the water, on land, the more diverse the system is, more organisms that it has, more different types of organisms, more speciation, the healthier the system really is. So when you start turning around and having all the silts and sand get piled up, it reduces the bottom feeders, the little guys at the very base end of that chain, and it starts messing around with the stream ecology as a whole. If those little guys aren't there, those fish aren't going to have anything to eat, plain and simple. Construction debris, what happens to, a nail here and there, and it eventually ends up in the water. And you're destroying the buffer zone, the riparian zone, that buffer that you need to prevent from flooding. Basically, those were like little arrows that didn't quite get there. But no riparian zone, increased flooding, you have pollution of water. The fourth thing that we saw that affected urban environments is our actual interactions with the environment. We need water for survival. We need that, at one point we needed that water for mills, therefore we put dams up, and we reduced the habitat for fishing, for fisheries to come, for fish to come up and access those upper tributaries of the watersheds. Used for agriculture, aquaculture, even in urban areas, there are people that would like to have gardens and stuff like that, it actually, it's not so much agriculture, but it's those places in the cities where they do have nice lawns. Well, they keep them up really well, but they fertilize the heck out of them. So even those pretty areas are fertilized quite well if it's private landowners. We don't really have much use for oil drilling here, but in other cities, especially Texas area and stuff like that, they do have oil drilling around that affect the water in their cities. And pretty much people do like to use the water for recreation. So basically, if you just look at the pictures, we use it for fishing, we need it for food. We have the dams that we use. I just like the cars there because it just kind of gave the overall picture about what we have done to the environment.